The GOP's redistricting push is gaining full steam. Now, according to new reporting from Punchbowl News, House Republicans are now eyeing up to at least a dozen seats across the country in Texas, in Florida, Missouri, Indiana, and Ohio. Joining us now, journalist and author of Anti-Democratic Inside the Right 50 Years Plot to Control American Elections, David Daley, and national affairs correspondent at The Nation, John Nichols. Thanks, both of you, for being with us. John, walk us through these dozen or more seats that Republicans believe that they can pick up.
Sure. The seats are, as you mentioned, in a number of states around the country. The largest number are in Texas, as we've been talking a lot about. But the other states that have been mentioned are states where Republicans control the governorship and the state legislature and have a capacity, although they may have to jump through some hoops, to switch a number of seats to a situation where a Republican could very likely win them. Now, at the heart of all this, in a number of these states across the country, is a development that would come out of Texas, and that is what the Texas legislature is trying to do is to basically push aside the Voting Rights Act and many of the protections that are a part of the Voting Rights Act. That act has been weakened a good deal by Supreme Court rulings, but it still exists in many instances and in many cases. If you were to undermine or push aside the Voting Rights Act, where if you were to literally say, well, that doesn't apply, at least in these circumstances, then there are very likely about a dozen seats that the Republicans could very easily switch. In many states, this would make a circumstance where you have a mixed delegation of Democrats and Republicans, now virtually entirely Republican, in some cases maybe entirely Republican. It would knock out some Democratic incumbents. So this is a really big deal. This is working over the map of the United States to eliminate seats that are currently held by Democrats. And it's one other thing that's important to recognize. A number of these states they're talking about are close to, they're not evenly split by any measure, but they're 60-40 states, 55-45 states. The Republicans have the advantage, but the Democrats are still present there. If these redraws occur, there's a circumstance where massive numbers of Democratic voters would be left without representation.
I want to bring in Punchbowl co-founder and MSNBC political analyst Jake Sherman. And Jake, what about these seats in Florida? The House Speaker there is now getting involved in this redistricting effort.
Yeah, just let me say this: most of these states, Republicans are in major control on Capitol Hill. Major control. Texas. Let's just run this through from the top. Texas, they're looking to get 5 seats. Florida, they're looking to get between 3 and 5 seats. They're looking to get a seat out of Missouri. They're looking to get a seat out of Indiana. They might look to Kansas. They're going to get 2 or 3 seats out of Ohio. That's a different situation because the court has mandated that they redraw ahead of the 2026 election. Florida and Texas are the big prizes, so to speak, for Republicans. Texas, they have gone into districts that they've gone into places in the state where they are basically eliminating Democratic representation. In South Texas, Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez. In Houston, Lizzie Fletcher, who represents the west part of Houston, West U and River Oaks. In Dallas, they're combining a seat. I mean, this is a major overhaul in Texas. In Florida, they're looking to take South Florida and effectively eliminate Jared Moskowitz and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and make those Republican seats. Doesn't mean Democrats can't win. But in almost all of these cases, Republicans are not in the 60-40 proposition. They are in command in the congressional delegation, and they are basically wiping, in the case of Florida, white Democrats off the map. Now, I say white Democrats because that means most of the Democrats in the South will be from majority-minority districts. I mean, when I started covering Congress back in 2009, many of these states were populated with both black and white and Democrats. That's not going to be the case anymore. They are looking to wash the map red for the foreseeable future in a way that I don't think anyone foresaw. A dozen seats is blunting the impact of, or could blunt the impact of, a good Democratic year at the ballot box.
Okay, so on the flip side of the coin, you mentioned the Democrats. Of course, they're trying to blunt the trauma by possibly engaging in their own redistricting efforts. We know here in New York, in California, possibly Illinois. So, David, I want to play what Governor Kathy Hochul told MSNBC just yesterday about possibly redrawing our state's map.
I'm going to do whatever I can to literally change the Constitution of New York State to allow us to have an election with the lines that we draw. If this is how they're going to play the game, we're going to fight fire with fire. But when they're willing to do this to subvert our democracy, shame on us if we don't stand up.
So, David, you have said that Democrats are packing a water gun in this fight. Why? Why is it so hard for them to do this and it's easier for Republicans?
Well, Republicans simply control more states. Republicans have been at the redistricting, gerrymandering game longer. I understand why Democratic voters are frustrated with this situation, why so many Democratic governors in blue states are talking tough. The trouble is they're just not packing much ammunition and targets. Democrats really maximized what they could do on these maps back in 2021. They took 14 of 17 seats in Illinois. They took 7 of 8 seats in Maryland. They added seats in Oregon, Nevada, New Mexico. They pretty much maximized where they can go. Now, of course, the big separator here is California. If they are able to jump through all of the hoops they would have to do to suspend the state's independent redistricting commission and gerrymander the map there, they could maybe pick up 4 seats, and that would blunt some of what is happening in Texas. But the problem is all of those states that Jake just mentioned, right? The 2 they're going to get in Ohio, the handful that could come out of Florida, the additional seats in Missouri, maybe Indiana, perhaps Kentucky, New Hampshire. There are multiple places on the map where Republicans can go. Democrats just don't have good options. In New York, Kathy Hochul is really tied up by that constitutional amendment process. Democrats aren't going to be able to do anything there until 2028. So they're talking a big game, but they don't have the firepower to fight this fire with the same fire.
Okay, so let's say that they fight with as much power as they can come to the fight with. Jake, does Donald Trump, does President Trump care that he may sacrifice some of those red seats in blue states?
The red seats in blue states? No. I mean, listen, the Democrats are talking a good game. They, as previously mentioned, have extraordinarily limited options. I mean, New York is a long shot. California even is a long shot, to be honest with you, a big long shot. I mean, Gavin Newsom is going to try to do this. It's in Democrats' interest. It's in his own political interest. I really don't see, Maryland tried to do a map that eliminated the lone Republican, Andy Harris, back in 2021 and was unable to do that. It's exactly right. They have come. Democrats drew good maps in 2021. They maximized their opportunities, and quite frankly, Republicans were not able to. And that's not a criticism or anything like that. They were just not able to. I don't really see New York being able to get its act together in order to do this before the 2026 midterms. I just don't. And there's not many. Listen, there's people in these maps. We're not talking about a broad thing. Like, you have to be able to draw districts that makes some sense. There are Republicans in the state of New York, and that might be inconvenient at this political moment for Democrats. Like, it's unfortunate that that's the case for them, but they've really maximized their opportunity in the state of New York.
And you answered my question, even though I misphrased it and wanted to ask you about losing seats in squarely Republican districts, but you did a great job with it.
It's not gonna happen, to be honest with you. In many cases, in a really good year for Democrats, there might be some problems in Texas where seats have gotten where they're taking Republican voters in places like Dallas and Houston and giving them to a Democratic congresswoman or congressman. These are still going to be pretty Republican seats.
Yeah, and we're going to follow it. I know the 3 of you will as well. Jake Sherman, David Daley, and John Nichols. Thank you all.